In the mist-shrouded forests of France, where history whispers from the ancient stones and the wind carries tales of the past, there unfolds a story as chilling as it is compelling. This is the saga of the man-eating wolves of France, a series of events that sowed fear in the hearts of the rural populace during a time when the line between civilization and the wild was perilously thin. These were no ordinary wolves. They were cunning, bold, and seemingly possessed of a malevolent intent. Their reign of terror set the countryside on edge, as tales of their gruesome attacks spread like wildfire through hamlets and across farmlands. With each full moon, a new chapter of dread was written, and the wolves' howls became a grim lullaby for a land under siege. Embark on a journey into the shadowy realm of man's oldest adversary, as we delve into the story of the man-eating wolves of France. Here, amidst the beauty of the French landscape, a battle for survival unfolds, a testament to the age-old struggle between humanity and the untamed forces of nature. In the 18th century, the pastoral tranquility of the French countryside was shattered by a series of chilling events that would become etched in the annals of local folklore. A dark presence had descended upon the land, a menace that came with the setting sun and the rising moon, the howling of wolves that harbored a taste for human flesh. These were not the wolves of old, skulking at the edges of the woods, weary of human contact. These predators were different. They were bolder, larger, and more brazen in their pursuits. Their eerie howls pierced the night, a sinister symphony that heralded the terror to come. Villagers whispered of glowing eyes in the darkness, of livestock found mauled beyond recognition, and of shadows that moved with unsettling intelligence. The attacks began sporadically, isolated incidents that could be dismissed as unfortunate encounters with nature. But as the weeks turned into months, the frequency and ferocity of the attacks grew. No longer could the villagers turn a blind eye to the threat that lurked at their doorsteps. Children were warned not to stray far from home, and travelers were cautioned against journeying after dusk. The wolves' relentless assaults soon took a more sinister turn, as reports of missing persons became all too common. Panic spread through the countryside like wildfire. The wolves, once creatures of myth and legend, had become all too real adversaries, and their presence cast a shadow over the once peaceful life in the rural communities. Farmers and shepherds, whose livelihoods were intertwined with the land and its creatures, found themselves facing an enemy that was both part of the natural world and an aberration within it. The howling menace had transformed the landscape into a place of uncertainty and fear, where every rustle in the underbrush could signal an imminent attack. The wolves of France had become the embodiment of a primal fear, a reminder of the fragility of human existence in the face of nature's unpredictable will. Their howls were no longer just a call to the wild, they were a declaration of war on the very essence of the rural way of life. The howling menace had begun, and with it, a desperate struggle for survival in the heart of the French countryside. As the full moon cast its silvery glow over the French countryside, the haunting reality of the wolf threat loomed larger than ever. The once benign and familiar moonlight now played host to a more sinister spectacle, the silhouettes of predators on the prowl, their forms casting elongated shadows as they moved with stealth through the fields and forests. The wolves' attacks grew more audacious under the cover of night. They seemed to be emboldened by the darkness, using it as a cloak to stalk their human prey with terrifying precision. The rural communities, already reeling from the loss of livestock, now faced a more personal threat as the wolves began to claim human victims with increasing regularity. Tales of narrow escapes and tragic losses circulated with the morning mists. Each account added to the tapestry of fear that now hung over the villages. People spoke in hushed tones of loved ones dragged away into the night, of blood-curdling screams that were abruptly silenced, and of the heart-wrenching grief that followed. The moonlight, once a symbol of romance and tranquility, had become a harbinger of death. The villagers, who had once admired the night sky, now shuttered their windows and barred their doors as dusk approached, seeking refuge from the shadows that roamed outside. The local authorities, overwhelmed and desperate to protect their citizens, organized patrols and encouraged the people to travel in groups when nightfall was unavoidable. Bonfires were lit in a bid to ward off the encroaching darkness, and watchmen kept vigil, their eyes scanning the horizon for any sign of the marauding wolves. Despite these precautions, the wolves' cunning seemed to surpass all efforts to thwart them. They struck quickly and vanished back into the shadows, leaving behind a trail of devastation and a community gripped by an all-consuming dread. Shadows in the Moonlight was not just a chapter in the story of the man-eating wolves of France, it was a nightly ordeal that tested the limits of human courage and resilience. The very essence of rural life was under siege, and the struggle to reclaim the safety and serenity of the night from the jaws of the wolves was a challenge that the people of the French countryside were determined to meet. As the crisis deepened and the man-eating wolves continued to terrorize the French countryside, the beleaguered villagers reached a turning point. No longer could they afford to be mere victims in this struggle for survival. A transformation was needed. It was time for the hunted to become the hunter. Galvanized by the urgent need to protect their homes and families, the villagers began to organize more formally. They rallied under the guidance of local leaders and seasoned woodsmen who knew the lay of the land and the behaviors of the wolves. These impromptu militias gathered whatever weapons they could, pitchforks, scythes, muskets, and set about devising strategies to confront their four-legged foes. The hunters laid traps and snares, hoping to capture or kill the wolves that had eluded them for so long. They patrolled the perimeters of their villages at night, torches and lanterns in hand, ready to respond at the first sign of danger. The community's blacksmiths forged iron collars with spikes, designed to protect the necks of the remaining livestock, and perhaps even the villagers themselves. The hunters also sought the wisdom of the elderly and the knowledge of the local naturalists, piecing together a clearer picture of the wolves' hunting patterns. They learned to read the signs of the forest, to track the wolves through their prints and scat, and to anticipate where they might strike next. On moonlit nights, when the wolves were most active, the hunters ventured into the heart of the woods. They moved with stealth, communicating through hand signals and the softest of whispers. Their hearts beat with a mixture of fear and determination, knowing that each step could bring them face to face with the enemy. The confrontations, when they came, were swift and brutal. The hunters encountered the wolves in tense standoffs, with each side assessing the other, searching for weaknesses. The crack of a rifle or the clash of metal would shatter the silence of the forest, signaling the life-and-death struggle between man and beast. The tide began to turn. Each wolf killed was a small victory, a sign that the villagers were reclaiming their land. The community's transformation from prey to predator was not without cost. There were injuries and losses, moments of despair and setbacks. But with each encounter, the villagers grew bolder, their strategies more refined, and their resolve stronger. The hunted becomes the hunter marked a pivotal chapter in the saga of the man-eating wolves of France. It was a time when the community's collective will was put to the test, and the people of the countryside proved that they were not passive victims but active defenders of their way of life. As the struggle against the man-eating wolves of France continued, something remarkable happened within the besieged villages. The fear that had once isolated neighbors now became the force that bound them together. The crisis had fostered an unwavering sense of community, uniting the people in common purpose. A community united emerged, not just in defense against a shared threat, but in the forging of a collective strength that would define their response to adversity. The villagers, who had once felt powerless, now found power in their unity. Meetings were held in town halls and village squares, where strategies were discussed and plans were made. The wisdom of the elders was combined with the vigor of the youth. Women and men worked side by side, contributing in whatever ways they could to the safety and well-being of their community. This unity extended beyond mere planning. The villagers pooled their resources, sharing food, supplies, and comfort with those who had suffered the most. They took turns keeping watch over each other's properties, and a network of communication was established to quickly raise the alarm at the first sign of danger. The children of the villages, once fearful of stepping outside, now saw their parents and neighbors standing together with a resolute courage. This example instilled in them a sense of pride and a lesson in the importance of community. They learned songs and stories that celebrated the bravery of their protectors, and these became the anthems of their resilience. The bonds of community extended to the hunters who ventured into the forests. They were no longer solitary figures but representatives of the villagers' collective will. Their successes and failures were shared by all, and each foray into the wilderness was backed by the hopes and prayers of those they left behind. As the community grew stronger, so too did the effectiveness of their efforts against the wolves. The once frequent attacks began to lessen, and with each passing week, the villagers grew more confident in their ability to secure their homes and livelihoods. A community united was not just a response to the terror of the wolves, it was a testament to the enduring human capacity for solidarity in the face of grave threats. It showcased the transformative power of a community in action, a force far greater than the sum of its parts. The unity that had been forged in the crucible of crisis would leave a lasting legacy, a sense of communal identity that would endure long after the last howl had faded into the silence of the French countryside. In the wake of the relentless struggle against the man-eating wolves, the people of the French countryside began to witness a gradual but undeniable shift. The once pervasive atmosphere of fear and uncertainty started to dissipate, giving way to a cautious optimism. The concerted efforts of the community, united in purpose and action, had turned the tide. The wolves that had brought so much grief and turmoil were finally vanquished, and with their absence came the return to tranquility. The villagers, who had endured sleepless nights filled with dread, now embraced the quiet evenings, the silence no longer a foreboding omen but a welcome respite. The moonlit nights reclaimed their beauty, no longer marred by the fear of shadows moving in the darkness. Children ventured out to play once more, their laughter a melody that harmonized with the natural sounds of the countryside. Farmers returned to their fields with a renewed vigor, tending to their crops without the looming threat of the wolves. The markets, once subdued by the pall of the attacks, now thrummed with activity as people gathered, not just to trade goods, but to share stories of survival and camaraderie. The unity that had been the villagers' shield in the face of danger did not dissolve with the threat. Instead, it evolved into a strong community bond, a mutual understanding and respect that was the silver lining of their harrowing experience. The trials had taught them the value of working together and the strength that lies in collective resolve. The hunters, once grim sentinels of the night, now walked among the villagers as guardians of peace. Their bravery and sacrifices were not forgotten, they were honored in tales that would be passed down through generations, reminders of the courage that had restored tranquility to their homes. As the memory of the wolves receded into the realm of legend, the villagers found solace in the return to their daily routines, each day a little brighter, each night a little more peaceful. The natural world around them, once a source of fear, was now viewed with a new appreciation and respect. The community had learned the importance of maintaining balance with the creatures of the forest to prevent the resurgence of such conflicts. The return to tranquility was not just a cessation of violence, it was a rebirth of the community spirit. The people of the French countryside had emerged from the shadow of the wolves with a profound sense of gratitude for the simple blessings of life. They had been through the darkest of times together, and in the light of their newfound peace, they celebrated the enduring resilience of the human spirit and the gentle embrace of a world returned to harmony.